Hey, this is Anthony with RevZilla. You watch, decide, and ride. Welcome to our detailed breakdown of the new Klim Outlander GTX boot, available at RevZilla.com. Oh, Klim, in the last 5 to 10 years, I've seen you innovate. But recently, I've wanted you to innovate more. I'm very happy you've put the Outlander out, and if you are the 4-season ADV touring rider, you will be happy too. This is the Outlander GTX, new for the spring of 2018, and it steps up its game in a few places that we haven't seen in quite some time. The first thing, and I'm just going to call it out right out of the gates, this is Gore-Tex, waterproof, breathable, guaranteed for life. It is going to be a protective CE-rated boot with protection everywhere. I'm going to talk about it, but the two pieces of innovation that are my favorite are two things we have not seen done very often. The first one is you're going to have this protection scheme at the toe. At the heel, you have D3O molecular armor up here on the lateral side and the medial side. These are big discs. And remember, D3O is a flexible armor that when you introduce a shock, it becomes rigid, dispersing that energy. But I love the fact that Klim is putting D3O now in the tongue. That is rock solid. That is something we don't see a lot. That is a nice step forward at a boot that still comes in under the $300 mark. I also love that Klim is using a new technology called Nestfit. And Nestfit is what makes the front side of this boot look a little bit more like a dinosaur's mouth than it does the normal front of a boot. And don't get me wrong, I like the dinosaur's mouth. If we look at it, it is a fatigue-reducing shape that ultimately contours the end of the boot instead of a normal symmetrical pyramid into cutouts that are small that are going to take your toes and allow them to rest comfortably within the boot. You can see how it's molded there. It reduces fatigue, it adds comfort. Again, so Nestfit, you have your D3O, and the last thing is a piece that ties it all together and really makes it a super tech boot is the Boa System. Now, we've seen the Boa System probably for the last 3 to 4 years. Boa, remember, eliminates laces. It is a stainless steel microfilament that is coated with a TPU, and what it allows this boot to do is quickly open for entry and exit, and then when you put it on, you snap it down, you twist it up with your gloved hand, and ultimately you now have a tight, cinched up boot that is keeping everything away from the controls in your motorcycle. So ultimately, extremely, extremely technical. They've pulled out all the stops in what is my estimation going to be a great on-road, off-road boot. Mid-height, great shin protection, great protection scheme throughout, nice rigidity, and ultimately carries that Gore-Tex mark. Remember, waterproof, breathable, guaranteed for life. There's no insulation in this boot, but I give it that 4-season rating. Now, before I talk about fit, I do want to talk a little bit about the positioning of this boot within Klim's line. And again, this is one of those frameworks that you should be thinking about as you're evaluating this boot. Klim has positioned this and said, hey, this is an awesome boot, the Outlander, if you want to rock it with the Badlands and do the gnarliest adventuring you could possibly do. I'm going to put my hand up right there, and I'm going to say this is great for a mixture of adventure riding. Phenomenal on-road. If we look at it, 6.5 on the stiff scale. Stiffer than you're thinking, comfortable sole, dual durometer. Again, it's going to work really well, and it's comfortable, again, with that Nestfit system. But if you get into the aspect of riding that is going to be super technical, super gnarly, extended periods of time, my recommendation is going to be to take on a boot that's a little bit higher. Give yourself that full shin protection because typically, even with the D3O at the tongue, you're still leaving a lot of room for trouble as you go up above that mid-height. And that is our professional opinion when it comes to this boot. Across the board, technical. But as technical as something with a much stiffer sole and a much higher height, I think that's where you need to make your own call. Now, let's talk briefly about fitment. We already talked about Boa. Self-adjusting, cinch it down, no laces. It's awesome. We talked about Nestfit. That's a nice touch. And I gave you the stiffness rating of a 6.5 out of 10, which means great support on the bike, great protection. You can walk around in it, but ultimately it's not overly soft. It's right there in that sweet spot of rock this with a 12GS, do some fire roads, some 2-track, rock it for the other 300 miles of the day on road, and hop off the bike without having to be super uncomfortable if you need to walk around for a little bit to get lunch. Again, it's going to come in squarely. From a fit standpoint, we consider it American. We don't consider it overly wide or overly narrow. We think it's going to fit true to size. Use a size chart. Remember, it'll ship free over 39 bucks. If you have questions, give us a shout. But ultimately, I'd also love it if you click our logo, subscribe to us, RevZilla on our YouTube channel, leave me your comments, your questions, your feedback around the new Outlander GTX. Now, let's walk our way through some of the other nuanced. You're seeing a microfiber, suede outer. You do have some mesh. And remember that mesh is going to vent directly to that Gore-Tex XCR layer, which again allows that evaporative cooling effect. So if you're sweating in your boot, your sweat is going to be wicked towards the Gore membrane, which actually is going to have an increase in the ability for that sweat to get out, perspire through the membrane itself. Remember, the membrane does not let wind or water in, and again, those mesh cutaways are going to help you out. We look at the side, it's suede. The front's going to be a beefed up material with a different abrasion resistance, tying in with that cap toe. Again, that's that Nestfit cap toe that I just think it looks like they should have called this boot the Tyrannosaur, because it just looks like badass, gnarly, a little bit of Jurassic Park going on. If we work our way along the side, again, dual durometer, softer for shock absorbing, harder, and it's high grip on the bottom. That's going to work with you if you happen to put your foot down off the bike. Again, whether you're rocking a trail or you're at a stop sign. Again, multi-density here and plenty of room if you're standing on the foot pegs as well. Now, if we look along the side here, this matte gray, we said, oh, that's great. They're adding additional matte reflectivity. That's incorrect. Klim, if I had a grape here, I'd like to see this become reflectivity. There's a way to tie that in and make it even more reflective, but they do give you a really strong pop of reflectivity along the back. I think for a boot at this level, that's going to be worn in traditionally 4-season on-road, off-road scenarios. A little bit of additional reflective could have gone a long way. Nice heel counter working its way up. Big and soft towards the top. Notice this is not an insulated boot, but it is beefy. Couple that with the Gore-Tex waterproof, windproof aspect, and you do have a boot that's going to keep you reasonably comfortable even into the dead of winter. I would ultimately add a pair of thick wool socks to this boot, and I'd rock it all the way down into whatever temperatures my heart desire until I needed to potentially put a heated insole in there. Working on to the medial side. Remember, medial side is going to have our D3O on the inside as well. That is awesome. Some of these different style elements working our way in. You see it in the shifter pad. You see it along the backside here. Ultimately, more mesh. That's going to be breathable. And the last thing I want to really show you is if I open this up, notice how simply that opened, quick and easy on and off. There's our Gore-Tex interior lining, which ultimately promotes additional wicking. Couple that with the Gore membrane, and you have the best chance to make sure that all that sweat gets out from the boot into the environment, away from your foot, so you never really get that cool, cold, clammy effect when your foot really starts to sweat. Some of you run really hot out there, and depending on what temperature range you're riding in, ultimately that sweat's going to get a little bit more problematic as you go. Now, in the summertime, does this vent like a vented boot? It doesn't. But if you maybe needed 2 pairs of boots, if you're the 12 GS rider or the F800 GS rider, I kind of look at you and I say, pick this up for fall, winter, spring, and maybe a hair of summertime or 4-season riding, and then maybe get a hardcore CE-rated touring style boot that has more direct ventilation to cover you in the hottest times of the year, and you're good to go. Now, all in, if we look at it, it covers a lot of bases. I love to see innovation, D3O in the tongue. I love to see the Nestfit newly incorporated. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of their competitors start to work their way in to Nestfit into the 2019 season. But ultimately, kudos, Klim. You've done a good job, and it doesn't cost $400. The next step in your journey is to click the info button, your desktop, your mobile device. Visit the product detail page at RevZilla.com. Read other rider reviews. You shouldn't just take my word for it. As always, we'll ship free over $39. If you want to talk to a gear geek, see us at RevZilla.com or 877-792-9455. Thanks for watching our detailed breakdown. Remember, subscribe to us at RevZilla on our YouTube channel. Stay up to date with our opinion of the latest and greatest in the motor universe. I'm Anthony. We'll see you next time.